Go goes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Randy, for the opportunity to come present. Randy called and said, would you be interested in doing a discussion at the meeting about decibel readings? And what we do during our daily activities. And I was like, yeah. So I looked into it and I put that little tagline on there. You know what you don't know, because I didn't know a lot of this. So maybe I don't know as much as you don't know, but the more I got into this, you know, the more interesting it was. So this is me. I'm just yacht, small craft guy. You know, a lot of you guys are much more diverse, do a lot more heavy lifting than that. But a lot of the rules and the regs apply. So I'm going to get into, start with some of the bit more heavier stuff, and then with a bit more lighter stuff, and in the spirit of, you know, taking away as much as we all can from each other and learning from each other's experiences, you know, like to end, you know, having a nice discussion about what we all do in these different instances. So I'm just a yacht and small craft guy. Who here is more cargo, commercial, fishing, inspected vessel side of the industry? Couple guys. So based on what our role on board is, you know, there are a lot of reasons why we might want to consider taking sound readings on board, but it gets pretty involved. So, do you know what you don't know? Who here has a decibel meter in their bag?
You can get one on your phone also now.
Right, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Does it meet, you know, type 2 requirements of ANSI for sound level meters S1.4-1971? Is it certified? The ones you get on your phone? I couldn't find, there might be one. I'll get into that a little bit.
All the phone is used like a hammer. All it is photograph.
I know, but if you're taking sound readings,
I got that.
it might matter. Keep going. Who's got a personal noise dosimeter in their tool bag? I think so. Does it meet class 2A requirements of ANSI for noise dosimeters? And does it measure left? That was a totally new one on me. We'll get into that in a little bit. And I couldn't even find what definition 3 and enclosure 1 was. I didn't.
What's measured left?
I'll get into that.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is primarily for noise requirements aboard inspected vessels. There's a lot to it. How about an octave band analyzer in your tool bag? You got one of those? I don't think anybody's got one of those. How about integrating sound level meter with peak and maximum hold capacity that measures time average A-weighted sound pressure?
Hey, I got that one.
You got that one?
I have 3 of those.
Todd, one of the manufacturers that I work for does have that, because they're like jacking sound and looking for sound in the manufacturer.
Yeah, so they're sound and vibration guys.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a whole field devoted to this. So when I was like getting into this, I was reading some of the stuff and I was like, what? So we talked earlier amongst ourselves, there's always a NAVIC for this, right? 1282. I didn't pull up the whole document, but there's a site for it. And these apply to commercial vessels inspected by the Coast Guard, except offshore drilling rigs. So I think the noise levels on those are off the charts. And I found this to be interesting. It doesn't apply to uninspected commercial vessels, unless, you know, the owners think it would be appropriate. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, it would not necessarily pertain to small craft, but it does trickle down a little bit. So you're gonna present yourself an authority for noise levels and include finding the recommendations in your report, you need to know this NAVIC and the language and the equipment necessary and follow some of the formulas for determining LEF, right? 24-hour effective exposure level. So there's the formula for that. If you're interested in trying to figure that out.
That's the formula for left.
That's the formula for LEF, the effective exposure level over 24 hours. Constant sound level that produces the same noise exposure as the actual time varying noise over a 24-hour period within the prescribed sound level limits.
So Todd, who would use that?
The sound and vibration guys.
What about like on, cruise ships and, consistent, the consistent common mode with that?
Yeah, so if there's a noise level issue aboard ship, then they're gonna have a sound guy come in, and that's where the dosimeter comes in. This is a shoulder worn sound recording device that records now sound levels over the course of a 24-hour period in that personnel's day.
OSBs and crew boats, that goes through conversion.
Yeah.
So I was involved in something, we did a good body extension on a handful of boats, OSBs. They doubled the valve thrusters. Definitely some problems with that, and these guys came in and did all of that. Conversions is a big one.
Yeah.
Where you're changing power or something.
So like I said, I want to start a little heavy. And, we're gonna trickle down into, more mundane things that apply to us, but as far as excessive noise level aboard a ship, it gets really involved. I wouldn't even know how to start figuring that out.
That has more things that aren't numbers, I don't know.
Yeah, it's beyond my trade, and they break it down for you where the LAI is a weighted sound level and the time is, so.
Yeah.
But there's somebody out there that would get so excited that we're.
Yeah, somebody would be able to, that physicist would do that whiteboard.
If she did the research to tell us today that we get the gap.
That you don't know what we're doing. You know what you don't know. I didn't know any of this. CFRs, audible alarms have to meet a specific requirement. Don't need to repeat all that, you all can read. But it needs to be measured on the 3rd octave band about the fundamental frequency.
That's how you use an octameter now?
Yes, yes. So you gotta measure, you don't not only have to measure the decibel level, the sound level pressure, you gotta measure the frequency.
Can a general alarm be too loud? I mean, I've heard.
Yes, not to exceed 120. Same thing, ISO standard for evacuation signals. Again, time weighted characteristics, some exceed the A weighted sound pressure level of the background noise averaged over a continuous period. So very involved. I mean, if you're really like you can get in the weeds with this, and I don't know, the attorneys would probably have a heyday if there was like some real casualty or some issue because the frequency of the alarm was not correct. So the takeaway for all this heavy stuff is it's pretty complicated, requiring some special equipment and training. But there's more. Recreational yachts and small craft, CFR and Colregs Rule 33 for sound signaling devices. We're all familiar with that. That's fairly cut and dry. Annex 3 is the real meat of that rule. ABYC spells out some standards for sound signaling devices. And there's Maryland Code of Regulations for noise levels also. So here's Annex 3 to Rule 33. the big three on here are the frequency, the range, and the approval. So, you know, the frequencies and range of audibility. So this is where, you know, you get into, and this pertains to recreational vessels and small craft, remember. It still has to be within, you know, a certain frequency range. And it has to be of, this is all for the frequency range, sorry. I don't even know what 250 to 700 hertz would sound like versus 70 to 200. There's a difference between beep beep and bomb bomb.
The foghorn dips down.
Yeah. Sound signal intensity. Range of audibility. This is we're pretty familiar with, less than 20 feet, you know, half a mile, 20 but less than 75 a mile. So whereas we might be able to measure sound level with our little machines, we're still not going to be able to measure range, can we? No.
Can one of those machines that you talked about earlier determine range from the local source of the sound?
I don't know.
'Cause I would-
I think it boils down to the dB level, the sound level pressure scientifically is going to be able to be heard a distance, and that's how they're able to determine that.
Sounds like what a dosimeter would do.
Right. But in looking through like what we normally find on these boats, you know, I found that, you know, right on the can, it says it gives you a sound signal, 119 dB. That's good, it's less than the 120, right? And meets Coast Guard requirements for use on boats 65 feet.
That's what I look for. That
So we're totally off the hook, right? The can are. Never gonna do a little demonstration.
Do it into the microphone.
Yes, do that. Have a little more fun with that. So we all see these. Do you guys sound these off in the course of your inspection on the boat? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This is out of the appendix for ABYC standard A23. The sound pressure measuring device shall be calibrated as recommended by National Institute of Standards Technologies or equivalent traceable source. So if we got a little sound thing out, it's got to be calibrated, and I don't think many of them are. Does anybody have an iPhone? Do you use an iPhone? Could you pull up on your app store this app and load it up? Because I think this is one of the few phone apps I've found that claims to be a calibrated unit. The one I have on my phone, there's no mention of it. All right, bring it up. Who else has got a meter on their phone? Bring it on. Bring it on.
Interesting.
Mine's
enough-
Android. Yours is an
Interesting
Apple.
enough, because I was just thinking the same thing about doing the sound check, right? And so I downloaded several, this is the NIOSH, which is the one that everybody goes on.
Yeah.
And most surveyor remember the boat phones. There's been a big flurry of, do we measure boat? Do we?
Yeah,
measure
I
sound?
posted that.
Right? And boy, what a varying,
I went on for
Yeah.
2 weeks.
yeah,
Pretty much nobody does.
right.
Some of them carry a meter in their bag that they haven't.
Well,
had
but,
out
you know,
in
my
years.
question still is, when does OSHA apply? Well, what are you trying to prove? Yeah, go.
I want to see how different the readings are on Blow the Horn.
Okay.
I'm gonna put them right in front of Steve,
Oh, my goodness.
because some of these.
We got the same damn one.
That'll be good, that'll be good.
Yeah.
You're gonna supposed to be a meter away.
Either way, Steve, you're right, good.
Ready?
That's really loud.
75.
I got
124,
99 back.
that one hit 124.
Yeah. I got 85.
I didn't get it, cause I didn't.
Okay, max 90.
You got 124 back there.
99.
Mine was 95,
I only got 85.
I had 95 on mine.
So much for that app.
Yeah, but you know, so there's the apps of the microphones have got filtering devices on.
Sure, protected.
Yeah. So this one's no good. I think that's probably the better
Which
one.
one do you have, Red, the Nash one?
Niosh,
And what
What'd
did
you
you get?
get?
I hit 124.8.
124?
Because this is supposed to
Wait, the
be,
meeting was right here, yeah, 120.
this is supposed to be up to
One night.
Do it
119.
again?
That's all, too.
One
85.
There you go.
NIOSH has it.
This is a test.
Yeah.
Test.
And I can't get that one on the Android.
Really?
Nope.
Todd, you might just tell the guys online what you've just done because they couldn't see that.
Okay. So what we did, folks online, we lined up some phone app sound recording devices and blew the horn a meter away from all the devices to see, you know, what the difference in recordings were. The NOASH one, which is on the screen, which is the only one I found that has got any claim to being a calibrated meter, appeared to be pretty accurate in our little rough test. The other ones that we had were way off. So
So that was on Android that didn't work.
Yeah, mine was way off.
But Apple hit.
the NOASH, NEOS, whatever you call it, which is the
Apple phone.
it's the App Store, but it's Centers for Health. App developed that.
Occupational safety and health.
Yes.
OSHA.
OSHA.
No shit.
No, it's not. How do you advance it? Was working great. There we go. So this is just my boilerplate, a section of my boilerplate, scope of work out of my report, you know, stating that, you know, we look at the CFRs and the voluntary standards recommended by ABYC, National Fire Protection, used as guidelines for the conduct of the survey. So I want to talk a little bit more as we get into some of these hypothetical scenarios. When we're on board doing these inspections and you're testing horns and you say test sounded, you know, do we need to elaborate on what we don't know in our reports? So this is where I was hoping we can have a little bit more fun, having an open discussion about how this is going to affect us. So Randy sent me these couple pictures when he was out in the field, and I wanted to paint a little scenario and see what we all thought. So you're on board, low quality fiberglass express yacht, pre-purchase inspection. And while in the main salon with machinery hatches closed and underway, it would be in normal conditions, you say to yourself, this boat is loud. You discreetly take out your dB meter and observe this. You know, do you report this to your client and on your report?
Sure.
Yes.
If they ask you for it. Ask you for your opinion. is it-
Well, no, this is just, you're like standing in the salon thinking this boat is just loud.
Well, so we'll certify audiologists or whatever you want.
Yeah, no, this is just you being curious.
Absolutely.
I do it every day. I put mine up down on top of it. This week, I mean.
Well, yours not accurate.
You know, the guy who was the desk, did you hear him?
Yours is not accurate.
It's close enough.
No, it's not. Because deep decibel level readings, it's on an algorithmic scale.
Look, I just pulled mine up and I pulled up the notch and I read the same damn thing.
So, I mean, it sort of goes back to, the scope of your work. If you're gonna say something about this, then, what are you gonna say about it? And how are you gonna back it up?
Gotta get a certified meter.
Right? Alright, so here's a similar scenario, but a little bit different. Same boat, underway, hatches closed underway. And your client says, does this boat seem loud to you? And you take out your meter and you show them this. How do you report this on your report? And what recommendations do you make? Because if you look at, the noise level requirements under OSHA go back to all those extreme calculations. I mean, it's basically anything above 90 for an extended period of time. I think it's 8 or 9 hours. That can be hazardous. So here's a guy who's buying a boat with 95 dB, but maybe your dB meter is crap. Maybe it's not 95. Maybe it's 110, just twice as loud. Maybe it's only 85, which would be a non-issue. So
I have a little something called investigate further.
yeah,
Have a certified.
Investigate further.
Permit.
So in the
Yeah.
scope
But
of
you're
survey.
just there to note the decibel level, that's it.
Because now in our scope of survey, now we have a engine technician on board the boat. If the electronics don't work, the electric do.
yeah,
If these AC and DC don't work, we'll call it out. And if we feel that the boat is a little bit loud, then we need to get.
maybe get a sound level expert.
And the third, if there's galvanic corrosion, we got to deal with that too.
Yeah,
So now we
so,
have 5 instead of 3.
yeah, so why do we even show up? Just,
Just tell them to check the whole boat out.
yeah, so it's,
AI do it.
yeah. All right, so. Here's another scenario. Performed a purchase inspection on motor yacht, submitted your report to the client, buys the boat. Months later, you get a call, the engines are much noisier than they were during the inspection and trial run. He wants to know if he took decibel readings during the trial run, you say no. He wants to know why not, because his attorney suggested you should have, and that he would need those to build a case because he suspects he's been duped somehow. How do you respond to that?
What's in the limiting conditions of your report?
Right. So that's sort of what I'm getting at is, we may need to consider adding a line in the scope of our report that decibel readings were not taken and that maybe, some specialized equipment would be needed to do so. And that's just beyond scope of your day.
Yeah, I mean, the lawyer should know we can't carry a decimeter everywhere we go.
And if you calibrate.
How's boat just getting noisy, so.
Right. Well, it could happen.
Could it?
Yeah.
I can't kind of wrap my head around.
There's, perception also.
How to respond. Go to the cockpit, go to the.
So here's Maryland law, and states have, different rules about this. But a person may not operate or give permission to operate a vessel that emits a maximum noise level exceeding 90 dB in A scale.
90
Yep. And noise level limits shall be measured using the procedures contained in the Marine Environment Noise Level Measurement Procedure. As incorporated by reference, we all know that. So, again, it's how you measure it.
I was gonna say, you talk about distance as well, so 90 feet of what and where. At the exhaust, 100 yards away, what's the limit on that?
I'm sure there are some with that where I pulled this off the web and get into more details about that.
I never heard that.
Yeah. So. Some boats are just loud. So that's part of their appeal, right? All right, so let's say you're hired to survey a go fast boat in Chesapeake Bay. Equipped with straight through transom exhaust and excessively loud as built. How do you measure this? Do you measure it? And how do you report this to your client?
Sign language. And it sounds cool. If they can't hear it, you need sign language.
We're going to hit this.
No, but seriously, this is real life scenario. You show up, you're like, oh, good grief. Now, we know what we don't know, but now we know. So if you got an excessively loud boat, do you tell your client it's illegal to operate per Maryland law? Are you equipped with the proper equipment to actually measure it, to show him that it is? Because Lloyd's app doesn't work, my app doesn't work.
App work.
You got it in the right one now?
Yeah, both of them. Everybody had the same little.
So how would you respond to that? Because we do a lot of go fast boats, a lot of go poker runs in Chesapeake Bay. You're gonna tell these people to buy these boats and have, a $100,000 paid job on a boat, that, oh, it's illegal to run the boat in Chesapeake Bay because the DB's too loud. They're gonna knock you off that boat in a heartbeat.
I know, but we're supposed to be, inspecting these boats for compliance, right?
Who's
Can't shoot the messenger on it. Yeah.
Yeah, can't shoot the messenger.
Enforcing it? Who's enforcing?
They defund.
My personal opinion is, this is on the books to be enforced, as needed. Like, if you were just a prick with your boat and you're just being annoying with your exhaust, and people are complaining, then, the law enforcement guy's got some teeth to do something about it.
There is places though in Maryland that do have signs about noise level, legal out.
I think you go to Eagle Alley, and there's a sound sign at Eagle Alley.
Don't know.
I don't think so, because I know.
No, I haven't paid much attention.
So I think, the guy buying this boat, isn't gonna give a shit,
Right.
because that's probably the reason he loves it, because the way it sounds, the way it does. B, I'm not equipped with the proper equipment, to measure it. And C, I don't particularly care that it's loud. But I think we're compelled as professionals, to tell the guy that per the letter of the law, that exhaust, the way it's set up, is illegal. You may get a ticket. And you just gotta come up with some language in your report and say so. But, is it become an A finding? Safety, structural compliance, somebody may give you a ticket. And then if it's an A finding, is the insurance company gonna flag it? And this guy call you back and say, you're such a jerk because now I can't get underwriting on my boat? Because of the exhaust?
I think, I don't know, man, I think you're opening yourself up to a lot of other stuff, legal other.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
interesting.
what do you mean, like, your players, if the players get fired again, or get funds. Yeah, they're just putting out reports that the county wants.
Breaking a law today, finding period.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's a US Coast Guard thing, you're talking about a Maryland thing, Maryland statute, though. You can get fined for that. Fine.
Is there one?
You're in Maryland.
I think they find a speedboat was too loud in Maryland. You do? Okay.
Impounded the boat?
Why they do that to the Navy of Pax River?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, he was blasting down the river. Yeah, he was probably, like you said, being a jerk.
Yep,
Yeah, being a jerk, and then someone called him in, and then the police have to respond. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
You just have
Right.
to open a lot of, I don't know.
That could be negligent operation.
could have been that, so. Something to consider.
Good point, I mean, great point.
So what scenarios can you imagine? In normal course of inspection where you would want to take sound level readings? And what scenarios? Where you would not want to take sound level readings? We like, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil,
Indeed, you man.
right? Maybe with the go fast boat. What if you never said anything at all?
But Todd, you don't.
Probably wouldn't be a problem until it was a problem.
Hear it when the sound is behind you.
No, I think they sound great, personally, I love it.
The thing is, when I get cranked up and hears, this at a decibel level, you can power it, but as soon as you put it in gear, all that sound is out the back.
It's back there, yeah, don't
Just
worry
like
about
they do
that.
On the motorcycle next door, as soon as he cranks up, that Harley dude at the stoplight, you hear it, as soon as he goes, you got the rest of the sound behind.
So, I just, I thought about this and thought about this and. I'm twitched in between with the go fast scenario. Between not saying anything. Because. What's gonna go wrong? To maybe the guy's like a real jerk. And not only does he operate his boat that way, but he gets a ticket and then sues you because you didn't tell him that his exhaust was too loud.
Yeah. I would put a comment in,
I think it's got to go back to,
And you're just
in the
saying-
scope of your work, you have got to explain that you did not take decibel readings for this vessel.
and in the undersigned opinion only, is freaking most loud.
Boat's way loud, sounds awesome. So. But where would you want to take sound level readings? What if you got, a legitimate issue on board where, the signaling device is just really weak?
Again, I'll just make a comment. Because I'm not trained to really do that. You could suggest, perhaps you may want to bring somebody in.
Right,
I'd make a comment.
Lloyd's got his hand up, in the back.
In the back, but Todd, okay, so let's shift from those to like.
Okay,
Locations of points, locations of high water field alarms. Saber or backcode is notorious for putting in the console. And when you run the boats, you can't hear the high water bilge alarm. They're there, but you can't hear them because they're in the paddock console. Or they're underneath your seat or underneath the console or school fish box. You can't hear them. So how do you test that? And the other thing is, a lot of these boats now, they're taking the air horns and turning them backwards.
okay.
The water doesn't pump up. So your distance is a challenge.
Oh,
Or they put them in the brow, the bridge brow. So they're protected so they don't go back.
there's some whole language about installation of these things,
Sure.
that
But-
would,
But the
Con-
thing is, you got a brand new boat, and you go there taking your horns in the wrong direction. What are you gonna do about it?
your brand new $5 million yacht.
Maybe more.
maybe more.
Take it back, so I bet you build it, they
Yeah.
don't do it right, because
No, because that dude has one direction, but it does not comply with what you're talking about. You can hear the exhaust of that motor, but that horn is going this way and then.
And it going that way.
It's not projecting in direct the power of the boat.
Correct. So would you write that up?
I've done it before.
Okay,
Absolutely. Offside the snake, you know, that old snake, look, you know.
I'd absolutely right.
yeah,
Or you know that, hey, look, the horns are probably not installed properly, you need to consider relocating
yes,
to notify.
it's not a compliance finding.
Don't know yet, you haven't read the rule yet, you gotta read the rule.
Todd, bring up good stuff.
Yeah, so, that's it.
So Todd, you wanna come to Norfolk and talk to us about this? We don't need the dosimeter stuff, we need the rest of it.
Yeah. So this is what we sort of wrapped up with. Should you include specific language in your report that you do not take sound level readings as part of your inspection in the accommodation spaces, machinery spaces, sound signaling devices? I think it's beyond, we got enough other things to look at. I think it's beyond the scope of our day, except for certain scenarios and pretty blatant, but yeah,
But Todd, but you brought up a very valid point about the attorney. So is this one of those things you just crank out all these questions and we send it to the attorneys? They come to talk to these meetings and get them to respond to that. Because I mean, like you said, I mean, we.
yeah, but what side are you on?
The matter of side. law.
Sure,
We're running ahead of time.
Put in.
yeah,
It's gonna take 15 minutes, that's probably.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just a thought, I mean.
Oh, no, I'm gonna revise some of the language, in the scope of my report. To address this, because, you know. I don't have an Apple phone, you know, maybe I should get an Apple phone so I can get that better meter, but. You know, I don't know if I wanna get involved in taking sound level readings over the course of the day, just because, you know, where do you stop?
Observe and report, right?
Observe and report,
Observation at this time, this RPM, now you gotta keep up the temperature, you gotta keep where you are. whether
Yeah.
it's Rough as shit, whether you're hanging on for dear life.
how come you didn't take readings when we were at 1,000 RPM?
Not qualified.
Yeah. So any questions? I thought it was kind of a fun, interesting topic. I don't think I ate up all my time.
That was awesome.
You did
But-
40 minutes, it says on there, look, 39 minutes and 6 seconds, I think that's pretty good.
We did good, Todd.
Good, thank you all.
Thanks, Todd. So we're gonna have a quick break, guys online, we're gonna have a 15-minute break. And I'll keep the room open and we'll see you back shortly.
Todd, good job, man. I never thought of that. I mean, I see this stuff, I'm